My name is Hannah Brooks, and I'm 29 years old. 3 months before my wedding, I learned that a father's silence can hurt more than a scream. It happened on a Sunday evening in my father's dining room. The table was small, old, and polished so many times by my mother that it still smelled faintly of lemon cleaner when the sun hit it. My fiancé, Noah Turner, sat beside me with one hand resting near mine under the table, warm and steady. Across from us sat my father, David Brooks, in the same chair he had used for years, his shoulders stiff, his face unreadable. I had spent the whole afternoon cooking: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans with butter, my father's favorites. I wanted that dinner to be special. I wanted to tell him that I was getting married and hear the words I had waited for my whole life. "I'm happy for you, Hannah." That was all I wanted. Noah smiled at me, his blue shirt pressed neatly, his dark hair still damp from the rain outside. He looked calm, but I knew he was nervous too. My father had never been openly rude to him before, but he had never been warm either. He treated Noah like a man standing too close to something that belonged to him. When the plates were half empty and the room had gone quiet except for the ticking kitchen clock, I took a breath and set my fork down. "Dad," I said softly, "Noah and I have something to tell you." My father looked up. "What is it?" Noah reached for my hand under the table. I held it tightly. "We set a wedding date," I said, trying to smile. "It's in October. We booked a small church in town, and we really want you there." For a second, nothing happened. My father just stared at me. His face didn't change. Then he put his fork down with a sharp clink against the plate. "No," he said. I blinked. "No. I won't bless this marriage." The room went still. I felt the blood leave my face. Noah's hand tightened around mine, but I could barely feel it. "Dad," I whispered, "what are you talking about?" My father pushed his plate away. "I'm talking about you making a mistake." Noah sat up straighter. "Mr. Brooks, I love Hannah. I want to take care of her." My father turned his cold eyes on him. "That's easy to say." Noah opened his mouth again, but I shook my head slightly. I was already trying not to cry. "Why would you say that?" I asked my father. "Noah has been nothing but kind to me. He's good to me." "That doesn't mean he's right for you." The words hit me harder than I expected. I had prepared myself for a difficult conversation. I had prepared for silence, even disapproval. But not this. Not a refusal so direct it felt like a door slamming in my face. I looked at the man sitting across from me and saw not only my father, but the same lonely widower I had spent 11 years trying to protect. My mother died when I was 18. One day, she was standing in our kitchen, humming while she packed my lunch for community college, and 6 months later, she was gone. Cancer moved through her body faster than any of us could understand. After the funeral, our house changed. The laughter disappeared first, then the music, then the little things that made it feel warm. My father changed too. He had always been quiet, but after my mother died, he became a different kind of quiet. Hard, heavy, and impossible to reach. He still went to work every day at the hardware store, still paid bills, still fixed things around the house, but it was like the soft part of him had been buried with my mother. We lived in the same home, but grief turned every room into separate islands. I had chances to leave after college. A friend invited me to move to Chicago for work. Later, another company offered me a better job in Denver. I said no to both. I told everyone I just wasn't ready for a big move, but the truth was simpler than that. I couldn't leave my father alone. At first, I thought it was temporary. I thought he just needed time. But years passed, and I stayed. I stayed for birthday dinners eaten in silence. I stayed for holidays that felt like funerals with pie. I stayed because every time I imagined moving out, I saw my father sitting alone at this same table, staring at the empty chair where my mother used to sit. Then, 2 years ago, I met Noah at the public library downtown when I dropped a stack of books all over the floor. He knelt to help me pick them up, smiled, and asked if I always carried enough novels to start my own bookstore. He made me laugh on a day when I hadn't expected to laugh at all. He was gentle without being weak, funny without trying too hard, and patient in the way only truly kind people are. For the first time in years, being with someone didn't feel like work. It felt like rest. And now the two men who mattered most in my life sat across from each other, with me trapped in the middle. "Dad," I said, my voice shaking, "I'm not asking for a speech or a big celebration. I'm just asking you to be happy for me." My father stood up from the table. "I can't," he said. Then he walked out of the room, leaving his dinner unfinished and my heart in pieces on the table between us. For a long time after my father walked out of that room, I just sat there staring at his empty chair. The chicken on my plate had gone cold. The candle in the middle of the table kept burning like nothing had happened. Noah said my name softly, but it sounded far away, like he was calling to me from another room. "Hannah!" I finally looked at him. My eyes were full of tears I had been trying to hold back. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Noah frowned. "Why are you apologizing to me?" "Because this dinner was supposed to be different. I thought if he saw us together, if he heard the way I said it, maybe he would understand." Noah reached across the table and took both my hands in his. "You don't have to apologize for your father's pain." But it didn't feel that simple. My father's pain had lived in our house for so long that sometimes it felt like part of the furniture, part of the walls, part of me. Even after all these years, I still measured my choices against his silence. That night, Noah drove me back to my apartment, and the whole ride I kept staring out the window at the passing streetlights. Every few minutes, I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe my father had just been shocked. Maybe he needed a day or two to calm down. Maybe he would call in the morning and say he was sorry. He didn't call. The next afternoon, I went to his house after work. I still had my key, though I hardly used it anymore. When I stepped inside, the house smelled like coffee and sawdust, the same way it always had. My father was in the garage, sanding an old wooden shelf he had been fixing for almost 6 months. He looked up when he saw me, but didn't smile. "You came back," he said. "You're my father," I answered. "Of course I came back." He turned off the sander and pulled off his work gloves. "If you're here to argue, I'm not in the mood." "I'm not here to argue. I'm here because I need to understand. I folded my arms tightly across my chest, trying to keep myself steady. What exactly is wrong with Noah? My father's jaw tightened. I already told you. I don't think this marriage is right. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. No, Dad, I said, stepping closer. It's the safest one you have. There's a difference. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then he walked past me and set the shelf against the wall. He doesn't know you the way I do, he said. He doesn't know how sensitive you are. He doesn't know how hard life can get. I let out a small, tired laugh. Noah knows me better than anyone. Not better than your family. The word family landed hard. I swallowed and forced myself to stay calm. This isn't about family. This is about you not wanting me to leave. My father's face darkened. So now I'm selfish? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He moved toward the workbench and started putting away tools, the same way he always did when he wanted to end a conversation without actually ending it. I followed him. Dad, please, just tell me the truth. He slammed a screwdriver down so hard it made me jump. The truth, he snapped. The truth is that marriage changes everything. A woman gets married, and suddenly her husband becomes her whole world. Then her visits get shorter. The phone calls stop. Holidays become complicated. Little by little, she disappears. I stared at him. That's what you think is going to happen? That's what always happens. His voice had dropped, but it was full of something sharp and bitter. I shook my head. You're talking like I'm moving across the country. I'm getting married, not vanishing. He gave me a look that hurt more than anger. It was fear, but he hid it under coldness. Maybe you don't know the difference yet, he said. I felt tears burn my eyes again. I have spent 11 years proving that I would never abandon you. He said nothing, so I kept going, because once the pain started coming out, I couldn't stop it. I stayed here after Mom died because you needed me. I turned down jobs because I didn't want you alone. I spent birthdays, weekends, and holidays trying to make this house feel less empty for you. And now, I finally choose something for myself, and you act like I'm betraying you. My father looked away. That hurt most of all. He couldn't even deny it. I stepped back, suddenly exhausted. Do you know what Noah said to me last night? My father stayed silent. He said he understood that you were scared. He still wants you at the wedding. He still wants to respect you. My voice shook. Can you say the same about him? My father crossed his arms. Respect is easy before marriage. Real life is different. You don't even know him. I know enough. No, I said quietly. You know loss, and you're punishing me for it. His head snapped toward me, but before he could answer, my phone buzzed in my purse. I almost ignored it, but when I pulled it out, I saw my Aunt Melissa's name on the screen. I answered, still breathing hard. Hi, Aunt Melissa. Her voice was careful, almost too careful. Hannah, honey, I thought you should know. Your father called me this morning. A cold feeling spread through my chest. What did he say? There was a pause. He said he won't be attending your wedding. I felt the air leave my lungs. I looked at my father, standing only a few feet away, and realized he had already made his choice. He just hadn't had the courage to tell me himself. I don't remember leaving the garage. One second I was standing there with my phone pressed to my ear, hearing Aunt Melissa's careful voice, and the next I was outside in my car with my hands shaking so hard I could barely fit the key into the ignition. My father wasn't coming to my wedding. He had not said it to my face. He had not sat me down like a father who loved his daughter and explained his fears. He had called my aunt instead, like it was a simple schedule change, like he was canceling dinner instead of breaking my heart. I drove home in silence, but by the time I reached my apartment, the silence inside me had turned into something heavier. It felt like grief, but also anger. Deep, old anger. The kind I had swallowed for years, because I thought being a good daughter meant staying quiet. Noah opened the door before I could even knock. One look at my face and he pulled me into his arms. "What happened?" I tried to answer, but all that came out was a broken sound. I buried my face in his chest and cried so hard my whole body hurt. "He's not coming," I said between breaths. "He told Aunt Melissa he's not coming to the wedding." Noah held me tighter. "I'm so sorry." I pulled away after a moment and wiped my face with the back of my hand. I don't understand how he can do this. I'm his daughter. This is supposed to be one of the biggest days of my life. Noah guided me to the couch and sat beside me. "Hannah, I know you love him. I know you want his blessing, but you can't keep begging someone to show up for you when they keep choosing not to." His words were gentle, but they still hurt, because I knew he was right. The next few days were some of the hardest of my life. Wedding planning was supposed to feel exciting, but everything now felt heavy. I went to my dress fitting and smiled for the seamstress while fighting tears. I met with the florist and nodded at flower samples I barely saw. Every happy moment had an empty chair beside it. Every decision reminded me that my father had chosen his pride over me. At night, I kept replaying my life in my head, trying to understand where everything had gone wrong. I remembered being 19 and hearing music from my friend's apartment across town while I sat at my father's kitchen table, eating frozen lasagna with him in silence. I remembered being 23 and turning down a job in Denver because my father had looked so lost when I told him I was thinking about moving. I remembered being 26 and leaving a birthday dinner early with coworkers because my father had texted, "The sink is leaking. I need help." At the time, I told myself it was love. Maybe it was. But somewhere along the way, love had turned into duty, and duty had turned into guilt. A week after the call from Aunt Melissa, Noah found me sitting on the floor of our bedroom, surrounded by wedding invitations I had been too tired to finish. He crouched in front of me. "Hannah!" I looked up. "What if I'm making a mistake?" His face fell. "About us?" "No," I said quickly, grabbing his hand. "Never about us. About all of this, about the wedding, about forcing something that's tearing my family apart." Noah was quiet for a moment. Then he sat beside me on the floor. "I love you," he said, "and I will wait for you if that's what you need. But I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it." I nodded. "I don't want to marry a woman who has to break herself in half just to keep everyone else comfortable. The words hit me so hard I couldn't breathe for a second. Noah touched my cheek. You have spent so much of your life carrying your father's loneliness like it belongs to you, but it doesn't. You can love him without giving him your future. I stared at him, tears filling my eyes again. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake thinking about everything Noah had said, and by morning, I knew I couldn't keep avoiding the truth. I couldn't keep pretending my father's silence was just sadness or stress. I needed him to look me in the eye and tell me why he was willing to lose me over this. So the next evening, I drove back to his house. The porch light was on, and through the living room window, I could see him sitting in his chair, the same one he always sat in after dinner. For a moment, I just stood outside, staring at the house where I had spent most of my life trying to be enough. Then I opened the door and walked in. My father looked up from his newspaper. "What are you doing here?" I shut the door behind me and held his gaze. "No more excuses," I said, my voice shaking but strong. "Tonight, you tell me the truth. Do you really hate Noah, or do you just hate that I'm leaving you?" For the first time in years, I saw my father's face change, and I knew this conversation was going to break us open. My father stared at me for a long moment, like he was deciding whether to keep lying or finally let me see the truth. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the soft ticking of the clock above the fireplace. I had heard those sounds all my life. Tonight, they felt louder than ever. "Well?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I'm done guessing, Dad. I'm done trying to read your silence like it's some kind of answer." He folded the newspaper slowly and set it on the table beside his chair. When he looked at me again, the anger I expected was gone. In its place was something I had not seen in a very long time. Fear. "I don't hate Noah," he said quietly. The words should have relieved me, but they only made my chest tighter. "Then why are you doing this?" I asked. "Why are you punishing me for wanting a life?" My father rubbed one hand over his face, suddenly looking older than I had ever noticed. "Because I know what happens when people leave." I stood still, waiting. "When your mother got sick," he said, "I kept telling myself we had more time, more birthdays, more Christmas mornings, more little arguments in the kitchen. I thought life gave warnings before it took someone away. But it doesn't. One day, they're there. The next day, the house is quiet, and nothing feels real anymore." His voice cracked on the last word. I felt my anger weaken, but I didn't let it disappear. "That still doesn't explain why you're refusing to come to my wedding." My father looked down at his hands. "After your mother died, you were all I had left in that house. Every morning I heard you getting ready for class. Every night I knew your car would pull into the driveway. It was the only thing that kept the silence from swallowing me." My throat tightened. "I know that sounds selfish," he said, "and maybe it is. But every time you talked about moving away, every time you stayed out late, every time I saw you building a life that didn't need me in it, I panicked. I kept thinking, first I lost your mother, and now I'm going to lose you, too." Tears burned my eyes, but I forced myself to stay steady. "So this was never about Noah." He shook his head. It was about you being afraid to be alone, I said. My father nodded once, and that small movement broke something inside me. I sat down on the couch across from him because my legs suddenly felt weak. Do you have any idea what this has done to me? He didn't answer. I stayed, I said, my voice shaking harder now. I stayed after Mom died because I loved you. I turned down jobs because I couldn't stand the thought of you eating dinner alone. I kept choosing this house, this grief, this guilt, over and over again, because I thought that was what a good daughter did. I wiped my cheeks angrily, and all these years, I thought one day you would see it. One day you would understand how much I gave up for you. My father's eyes filled with tears. I did see it, he whispered. That's the worst part. I saw all of it, Hannah. I just didn't know how to let you go without feeling like I was being buried again. The room fell silent. For the first time, I understood the shape of his pain. But understanding it didn't erase mine. I stood up slowly. I'm sorry you're lonely. I'm sorry you lost Mom. I'm sorry life has been cruel to you, but I can't keep paying for that loss with my own future. My father closed his eyes. I love you, I said. I always will. But I'm done proving it by sacrificing myself. When I turned toward the door, I heard him stand up behind me. Hannah! I stopped but didn't turn around. His voice was rough when he spoke again. If I come, would it still matter? I closed my eyes, and fresh tears slipped down my face. Yes, I whispered. It would matter. My wedding day arrived gray and cool, with soft rain tapping against the church windows. I was standing in a small room behind the sanctuary, my dress zipped, my bouquet trembling in my hands, when Aunt Melissa stepped inside with tears in her eyes. He's here, she said. My heart stopped. I walked into the hallway, and there he was. My father stood near the church doors in a dark suit I had never seen before. He looked uncomfortable, exhausted, and deeply human. For a second, we only stared at each other. Then he stepped forward. I can't give you back the years I made heavy, he said, his voice unsteady. But if I miss this day because of my pride, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I started crying before he even finished. He reached for my hand carefully, like he wasn't sure he still had the right. I was wrong, he said. I was afraid, and I'm sorry. I threw my arms around him, and for the first time since my mother died, my father held me like he wasn't trying to hide his grief behind silence. A few minutes later, he walked me down the aisle. When he placed my hand in Noah's, he leaned close and whispered, Go live your life, Hannah. Don't stay behind for me. I cried all through my vows. That day, I married the man I loved. But I also left something else behind at the altar, the guilt I had carried for years. For a long time, I believed being a good daughter meant carrying my father's pain like it was mine. But love should not ask you to bury your future. Sometimes loving your family means forgiving them, and sometimes it means finally choosing your own life. That was the day I learned how to do both.